Hello and welcome to this would be my first broadcast for the Peace with Alex. And today I'd like to discuss something that most of us don't like to discuss and would rather not think about, and that is the subject of death. It's a horrible thought, but I think it's something that's necessary to contemplate, not obsess, but just contemplate once in a while. And I would propose to the question, or propose that you think about this question: what if you were given 6 months to a year left to live? Not as a real question. What thoughts, what emotions would go through your mind, and is there anything you would change in your current situation because of hearing that news? And it's, again, I want to reiterate, it's a horrible thing to think about, but some cultures do encourage you to think. And in many of my talks, I'm going to refer back to Buddhism. In Buddhism, it is something that they encourage you to think about. And the reason, I will propose two reasons why I think this is something people should contemplate. First is it's unavoidable. That classic saying, the only two sure things in life are death and taxes. If you're listening to this today, or anyone who's alive at this very moment, will have a moment where they will be declared dead at some point in time in the future. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole as to what happens after death. That's a very, very big, vast subject. But it is, I do find it's ironic in at least Western societies that we are made to fear the one thing that we'll never be able to avoid. So it's like, well, why? You know, we should face the one thing that we'll all have to face at one point in time. The second thing I want to talk about is, or reason for suggesting that we all should contemplate death, is what changes would you make in your current life if, and let's just say for arguments, you had 5 years left to live. Would there be anything that you change in your current life? I think all too often people will put up with situations or live a certain way that they'd rather not. But it's like, oh, well, I can push that problem off into the future. And sometimes that doesn't happen. And death can come at any time. So I'll give you a personal story. A good friend of mine, he was 45 at the time. This was many years ago. He came down with cancer, and we were chatting through Facebook. And as we were chatting, he seemed to be getting on the mend. And I said, hey, when you're better, I'll come by your house and we'll visit. Sadly enough, he never recovered. He passed away. I never got the chance to visit him. So this is a classic situation of you never know when you want to reconnect with someone, especially if they are, sick. You never know when that moment will be taken away from you to reconnect with them. So the one thing, though, that I would advise against is, if you were given that information or that news, I would advise against thinking about the past and thinking about, well, I wish I could have changed something in the past. And the reason why I advise against this is we can't change the past. If we've done, and we've all done shitty things, we've hurt someone, all we can do now is just apologize and make amends. And when we make amends, this is from the 12-step tradition. When making amends, we do it without any expectations. In an ideal case, you can reconnect with someone that you've hurt, but often it's just to, as I've heard one person state it, clean your side of the street. So if that's something you can do, then by all means do that. And one of the things why I've sort of thought about this is many years ago, my ex used to work in hospice care, and it's incredible what people can learn when you work with the dying. And that is why I titled this talk "Start with the End." If you know that your life is going to end at some point in time in the future, then make changes today so that when that end comes, you don't look back and you go, well, I wish I could have changed things. Because there are things, at least in the present day and going forward, that we can change. We can't totally control what happens in the future, but we can certainly make plans. And this is the other thing that I want to mention too, is that in the contemplation of death, this doesn't mean to say that you can't have dreams and goals and work towards something that you hope to achieve in the future. Good example is if you want to buy a house, if you and your spouse are saving up for a down payment on a house, don't stop and blow all the money. Just say, oh, well, we never know when we're going to die. So no, continue on that path. And if all goes well, you will own a home. And so recently I've wanted to revisit this, and I was made aware of a book. There was a book written about this by Bronnie, Ware, and I'm just going to see if I can change to my slides here. So there we go. And this is called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. I can't remember exactly when it was written, but it was written by Bronnie Ware, an Australian woman who spent, I think, if memory serves me correctly, she spent 8 years as a live-in carer for people who were dying. And she, of course, learned a lot, and she took all this information, I guess for lack of a better word, and turned it into a book to share. So the first thing, I don't know if necessarily she put these in order or of importance from most to least important, but the first chapter is, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And often in the book, there was a lot of discussion around family. What family had certain expectations. In my own personal experience, I'm very blessed to have had a family who would never have done that. They were very accepting of the choices I made in my life. So that, quite honestly, it's not something I can relate to, of having to break from a family bond over an expectation that a family member had of me. The other thing, too, which she didn't get into a lot, but what I would also propose is that there are societal expectations. And I think that's important too. If what makes you happy is going to result in you having a very unorthodox life, and you feel that people may judge you, may look down upon you, or whatever. I My feeling is that I think if you're living a life true to yourself, then go ahead and do it. Um, I think that there's a lot of expectations that society puts upon individuals, and in my case, it's the growing up in Canada, so it's very much a Western sort of ideology. But yeah, certainly, I would argue that the life, I would put it this way, the life that we're sold, I don't necessarily think will lead to a peaceful life or a happy life. I think that there are other things we can do that um, will increase our peace and happiness, but won't necessarily fit into the expectations of what a Western society would expect of you. And I would guess that in other cultures, uh, there are similar things, but just with different expectations. The second thing is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And it's something I'm sure all of us have heard. No one lay on their deathbed and said, I wish I had spent more time at the office. And this doesn't necessarily mean that, okay, if your boss comes to you and they need you to do overtime, or you're getting a little overloaded at work and you have to put in a few extra hours, I'm not saying, oh, well, uh, you know, I'm not going to take my life years away for this company. As long as it's a temporary thing, then why not? And I would also argue that sometimes it's a necessary thing. Sometimes putting in those extra hours will allow us to achieve a certain goal in the future, financial goal, that will bring us more happiness and joy at a future point. And this is something that I'll talk about probably in a later talk, is the concept of delayed gratification. We very much live in a society of instant gratification. Oh, well, I want my needs fulfilled, my needs and wants fulfilled now. But my interpretation of this is that if your reason for being is, as they say, you live to work, and unless the only caveat or exception I would have is that you could have a job that just brings you so much joy. And many people are blessed to be in this situation where it's not even work. So when it doesn't feel like work and you're getting paid to do it, you'll put in the extra hours. And as long as it doesn't take you away from other aspects of your life, but many people are blessed to be in that situation. But if putting in that time and energy into a job or a career is taking away your life force, then maybe it's something to rethink. And then the third one is, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. And one of my reactions to this is the fact that we tend to categorize emotions, feelings and emotions, into good and bad categories. And again, drawing upon Buddhist philosophy, and I don't know if there are other philosophies that talk about this, but there really is no good emotion, bad emotion. They all serve a purpose. So we're often discouraged to be angry. Oh, well, control your anger. We got to get our anger under control. But anger serves a purpose. it's the expression of the anger that could cause a problem, right? So, I mean, if anger leads to violence, then no, that's not a good thing. But if you can express that anger in a healthy way, then it's not something that you want to suppress. It's something that you do want to express that feeling and express the whole gamut. As human beings, we have a wide range of emotions, and it's part of the beauty of being a human being is we get to experience such a wide variety of emotions and feelings. It's led to so many great works of art, both in every possible genre you can think of, in media you can think of. Um, so, and the other thing I want to add to that is that it's important to surround yourself with people who accept you for who you are and will accept you for expressing your feelings in a healthy way. Um, that that is something that I think we should all strive towards, because it's acceptance is such a basic human need, um, and we don't want to live. And three goes into one. We don't want to have to suppress our feelings, not be true to ourselves, just to appease other people. The fourth one, I am very much guilty of this, and this goes back to the story of my friend who had passed away, and I never got the chance to visit him before he passed away. And that is staying in touch with my friends. I I didn't do a good job of it. So it is something that I will strive towards, and in the friends that I make in the future, I will try to stay in touch with them, and because I believe that a necessary, an important ingredient, I don't want to say necessary, but an important ingredient to a happy and peaceful life is having a circle of friends who support you and accept you. And yeah, I think it's if you have that chance, go. And in the book, Bronnie actually took the time to search out some friends that people had lost contact with. So if you can do that, then go for it. Who knows what'll happen? And it's funny this comes out because I actually recently got in touch with somebody I went to university with 30 years ago, going on, well, yeah, some like 30 years ago. And we had a discussion, and it was wonderful to reconnect with that person. And then the last thing is I wish I had let myself be happier. And I think this goes back to what I was saying on point number 3. We often, I think there's a couple of elements here, is that we categorize emotions into good and bad when emotions just are. They're and the other thing too, you might have heard of this, at least I have, is that some people will explain emotion as energy in motion. And some of the emotions that we feel are a prompt or a nudge to lead us to action, to resolve that emotion. So it's important that we listen to that and not suppress our feelings. And the other thing too is that some people feel they don't deserve to be happy. They don't deserve a happy life. They don't deserve joy. And that is never the case. Everyone deserves happiness. Everyone deserves joy. And if there's anyone in your life who is toxic and making you feel that way, you need to do what you can to distance yourself from people like that. Uh, the joy that you have is you fully own that, and you deserve to own that. And many people will argue that happiness is a choice for the most part. For the most part, we can't be happy all the time. So uh, there are moments where it's appropriate to not be happy. So if something would be wrong with you if you were still happy, like I said in the first, in my previous talk about my cat dying, I was sad. If you lose your job and you're feel a little bit kicked down and about it, that's okay. It's perfectly normal to have your self confidence knocked down a few notches when you get fired from a job. It's perfectly normal. But as long as you get up, dust yourself off, and uh, live to see another day, and then a breakup would be another thing. I mean, nobody is happy about the dissolution of a relationship. Um, so, but in terms of getting back to my comment about happiness is a choice, uh, that is something that you should own that, and you should also I don't know if it's the courage, but strength is, I think, a better word. Have the strength to stand up and say, I deserve to be happy, regardless of what other people may think, or expect. Going back to point number one, what other people expect of you, or anything like that. You deserve to be happy, and that's the important thing. I think the takeaway from point number 5. So that's basically a quick summary. I encourage you, go out, get the book, go read it. It's very valuable information, and I do think, again, don't obsess on it. We don't want to, I'm not trying to start a death cult here, but take the time every once in a while to think about, okay, well, what think about your own death, and think about. I think this is what I want to say. Contemplate on your own mortality. That this is just a human vessel, and maybe I will talk about that at a later point. I really like the idea that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and for the time that we're on Earth, this is our vessel, and our vessel. Our vessel is only here. We only live in this vessel for a certain period of time, and we only exist on this planet for a certain period of time. And it goes both ways, right? I mean, there was a moment before you were born where you didn't exist, and there will be a moment at the end of your life where you won't exist, at least in the earthly plane. And again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of afterlife theories and things like that, but at least in the earthly plane, that there's a timeline that we're here for. Some of it's very short, and some of us get to experience this wonderful life for many years, and I hope that for all of you listening, that you do live a long and happy life, and you get to live to a ripe old age, and you can look back upon your life and think, I think the best thing we can all say, and I'll finish here, is at the end of our life, when we know our days are coming to a close, we look back and we said, life didn't turn out the way I expected it to, didn't go as planned, but I can look back and say, I had a happy life. So, uh, so that's my message to everyone listening: is that I hope we can all have a happy life. Take care.